That was a live recap, or maybe a replay of my reaction when I saw that three-time All-Star Rafael Devers was traded from the Boston Red Sox to the San Francisco Giants last night. A lot of you didn't see that coming. We've talked a lot about Rafi recently because, frankly, all season it's been one thing or another, right? It was very clear that Devers was not getting along with Craig Breslow and the people up on the fifth floor and the executive team. And he felt like he had earned his cornerstone franchise player status with the team and didn't need to make all these changes that he was being asked to make. We've talked a lot about how he has a point. There is a level of figure it out. Why am I always the option? I'm supposed to be the guy that you guys work around, not the person that you're throwing all over the place like I'm a utility guy. There's a point there. But at some point, you can't throw your hands up every single time, or something like this happens. So Boston receives, in exchange for Rafael Devers, Kyle Harrison, left-handed starter who's currently with the team, right-hander Jordan Hicks, who is in year 2 of a 4-year deal that he signed before last season with the Giants. And he is also, actually, I'm not sure if he's in the rotation. He's kind of bounced around a lot, but as you remember, he's a guy who throws really hard, and he's been a quality big leaguer for a long time. They also got outfield prospect James Tibbs III. James Tibbs III. I correct that. Wonderful name, James. Keep that up. I would call him Jimmy Tibbs, but that's just me. Rookie league right-hander Jose Bayo, who, it's the Red Sox. They love the last name Bayo. So when in doubt, right? So that's 4 players. In addition to San Francisco agreeing to eat the just over $250 million that are left in Rafi's contract. So Red Sox get 4 players and have to cover none of a franchise player's salary, the biggest salary on their team. In that case, if you're trying to shed payroll, that's one way to do it. But by all metrics, under the sun and otherwise, Rafael Devers is earning his money, even if he's a DH, because frankly, when he's in the field, his WAR goes down because he's not a good defensive player. I think he knows that, but I think everyone knows that. Okay. He is on his way to making another All-Star team after starting the season with 16 straight strikeouts or whatever. He has absolutely turned it on. He's a top 10 player in the AL, or was in the AL, in OPS. He took to DHing, I think, better than a lot of people thought he would, even probably surprised himself a little bit. He's only a year and a half removed from signing that original 10-year, $313.5 million contract. So that kind of brings a lot of questions. I'm sure you have tons of questions, like how this thing works and what happened. Let's quickly try to break all of that down because there's a lot to unpack here. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around it. I'm getting, Luka Doncic vibes. People who are making the decisions didn't like the guy or didn't see him as a part of the solution moving forward. And unfortunately, the last member of the last World Series team in Boston has left the team. There's now nobody on the roster that was on that 2018 team. So mourn that, Red Sox fans, as much as you need. I'll be here. Why did the Red Sox trade Rafi? Let's talk a little bit about all the events that led us here and try to figure out what was going through the mind. Maybe we can figure out what the point of time that the Red Sox decided that Rafi probably wasn't in the plan all the way to 2033, because that's what his contract was signed to. He's a young dude. You make a commitment, and a year and a half later, you change your mind. There's a lot going on. The trade ends a fractured relationship between Devers and the Red Sox that had degraded since spring training when Devers balked at having to move off of third base. Alex Bregman was kind of rumored to be talking to the Red Sox. He wanted to play third base. He's the Gold Glove from last year in the AL for third base, so you got to put him out there, right? And Rafi is notoriously a below-average third baseman, and the Red Sox defense has been horrendous for 4 years now. They're terrible, and they're constantly giving up runs for their pitchers. So he was never going to be a long-term third baseman, in my opinion. I don't think that generally means you're just going to go be a DH, but that made a little bit more sense to me, but he very clearly took that as a kind of a knock against him and his ability to play the position. So that happened first, and then they actually signed Bregman, which made it real. That was the first time we got unhappy Rafi in front of a camera. They said, will you DH only? And he said, no. Now we know that's going to change a little bit down the road. They also gave him no forewarning before just saying you're going to DH. So not only is he not playing third base, now he just has to sit there and hold his bat like a teddy bear and wait to hit. So that is not enticing to a lot of hitters for a lot of reasons. We've covered a lot in the past. But sometimes guys just struggle to sit there and just wait for the next AB. It bothers them mentally. Having defense to kind of be a palate cleanser between at-bats is sometimes good for a hitter, okay? Then Tristan Casas gets hurt in early May, ending his season. Rest in peace. Feel bad for Tristan. I wish he was out there because I think the game's a better place when Tristan Casas is out there having way more fun than everybody else. That brought up questions. Who's going to play first? This was thrown out there when Bregman was signed by the Red Sox. Maybe he can play first, but we have Tristan Casas. Well, now we don't have Tristan Casas. Can we make our DH only guy now move in to play first? Again, Rafi's like, stop it. I don't want to do that. He even said the front office should do their jobs. Boom. So he's like, just go find somebody else to play first. We can find somebody else to play first, which they did. You know, Romy Gonzalez is playing first base. They've tried some other people out, and it's worked out generally. But after he made those comments, he started to get some attention from the front office and the owner, John Henry. Not a good sign. You never want your owner, especially the guy who signed that check for $313.5 million, to be like, hey, bro, you're still an employee no matter how much money you make. So here is a quote from Pete Abraham from the Boston Globe from last night. He said, per Red Sox sources, the team's feeling was that a $313 million contract comes with responsibilities to do what is right for the team, and that Devers did not live up to those responsibilities. They had enough, and they traded him. Okay, so the interesting thing about this is everyone wants their franchise player. It's so rare, and this is why it was crazy about Luka as well with the Mavericks. Once you find that guy, you don't let go of that guy. Once you decide that he is your guy, you don't go back on that idea, right? You stick to it. It's like part of your long-term plan. In January in 2023, we thought Rafi Devers was that guy, right? Now pretty much every team has a $250 to $300 million player. He's usually the center of the team, and then you build around him, and Rafi was that guy. Then they decided, we don't think Rafi will make any sacrifices for the rest of the team. He just wants what he wants, and we have to build around him, which is kind of already how teams kind of generally are. I think that's what his expectation was. He didn't want to be the one being jerked around and having to worry about this stuff. That was for someone being paid a lot less money. Now you can call that selfish, you can call that whatever. There's a little bit of a point there, but there also has to be I'm ride or die a Red Sox, so I'm going to do what I need to do. You have to land on that if you want to stay in that city for a long period of time. Full stop. You can be mad, you can be frustrated, but eventually you got to find a happy medium where you're like, I am here to play baseball and I want to win baseball games and the money is nice, but I want that first. And if that means just DHing, that means just DHing. But if it's pulling teeth every time they need you to change anything at all, they can get off you pretty quickly. And it seems like with the new GM with Craig Breslow, which is really interesting. We'll talk a little more about him because I was actually his teammate for a year, and all of this is very surprising to me. They just don't keep their center guy. They haven't done it either. And you guys may remember some of these other choices they've made recently that are very similar to this one. Remember these guys? That's Xander Bogaerts. He was a longtime shortstop and also in the conversation for being a franchise player long-term with the Red Sox, and they let him go in free agency. Now, that's a little different. Guy plays for 6 years, then gets a free agent contract. That's his highest leverage time to get a big contract. So letting a guy get to free agency almost always means they are leaving, unless you're Pete Alonso and you try everything and then you have to circle back. Usually, when it comes to free agency contracts, the grass is always greener in terms of money. There's a bidding war in there. So if you get there, you usually leave. So I'm going to give Bogaerts a little bit of that's more normal for that to happen. What isn't normal is trading MVP Mookie Betts after they win a World Series. That isn't normal. And that's one that's stuck in the craw of a lot of the Cape Codders up there for a while. Mookie Betts is the one got away. He has almost supplanted Babe Ruth in that role. And now Rafi has followed suit and went over to the West Coast with the other two. And now, surprise, they're all in the same division, which I just realized. So that is interesting. And now there's nobody from that 18 team. So we have completely fully rebuilt from the 2018 team. It is interesting. Actually, Mookie Betts had a comment after the Dodgers 5-4 win over those same Giants last night. He said, I just thought it was crazy. Nothing really to say. It's just crazy. I genuinely don't care. It is what it is. Okay, that's the first time I read that. I gotta be honest. That's the first time I read that. That's good. I honestly genuinely don't care. Like I'm not gonna get all hot and bothered by the Red Sox and their decision making, but that is kind of crazy. And it's kind of crazy. That sounds like a guy who just really doesn't want to talk about this. Cool. He's gone. Craig Breslow. Wasn't a big fan. I think that was pretty apparent from the beginning. And you got to think about it this way. So here's been my experience with Craig. I am a huge Craig Breslow fan. I think he's one of the most intelligent, thoughtful, and measured people that I ever shared a clubhouse with. Our lockers were next to each other. I was rehabbing Tommy John, so I was just kind of sitting there listening to him and Matt Belisle talk to each other. It was pretty clear he was going to be a GM. But what he doesn't have is an abrasive bone in his body. Like, he doesn't come at you for no reason, but he does stick to his guns, and I think that's kind of what happened here. It's hard for me to think that a player, like Rafi, too, who's very likable as well, had like a personal problem with Craig Breslow. I think Craig just says, hey, man, this is hard. This job's really hard, and it's Boston. Like, I got to figure out a way to piece this thing together, and I can't just pay everybody. That's not how it's going to happen. So you got to work with me here, and he wasn't getting a lot of that going. But I think at the end of the day, John Henry was the man who was like, you know what? Whatever you need to do, if he's in your way, let's go. And I think that's kind of just what happened, and it's just one of those unfortunate circumstances. There is another side of this, remember. The Giants, who are good this year, and just got an all-star. Like, we voted on the all-star game last week. I put Rafael Devers in DH for AL. Uh-oh. I don't know what happens now, actually, because now he's against Ohtani. So we'll see. We'll see how this works. I genuinely don't know how it's going to work. He goes over to a team that has a lot of the same problems as the Red Sox in terms of personnel. So this is actually a quote from Buster Posey, their president of baseball operations. I just think that the bat's so special. So do I. My thoughts are it's really hard to acquire the type of talent at this point in his career. I agree with that as well. It's pretty unprecedented. We're obviously taking on a lot of money. We're giving up some pitching, giving up our first round pick from last year. That's Tibbs. So this didn't come without a cost, but we felt like this was a chance to take a shot. I fully agree. If they're willing to get rid of him, I think that the Giants got a W here, right? But like I said, personnel problems. Who's the third baseman? Oh yeah, Matt Chapman, who got paid a bunch of money last year. He's going to be their full-time third baseman. They don't have him right now. He is nursing a sprain, I believe an ankle sprain. He will be the third base. So that leaves first base for Rafi. So now we're back to where we were before. Because guess who the DH is? Wilmer Flores, who just happens to be leading the Giants in RBIs with 51 and having the best season he's had in years. So like, you can't just be like, all right, Wilmer. Wilmer was on the hot seat. He has earned his spot. He deserves to be out there. But again, he's a little bit of a defensive liability as well. So like, which guy are you going to put in the field? The question is, would Devers consider playing first base for the Giants? I guess we're going to find out about that in the next couple days. I'm going to be blown away if he just goes out and does it right away. And it's like, you know what, I'm good. Let's just go play first base. That is interesting. So we got to see how they're going to move those pieces around in order to get the most out of the three guys who are very good players and also being paid really well. I don't know what they do, but I will say, especially since Lamont Wade is gone and Dom Smith has taken over playing first quite a bit, that Rafi can go play first base. If he can just play a passable first base, having his bat in that lineup will be next level. After being the DH all season, could he play third until Chapman comes back? I wouldn't do that. Just throwing that out there. Would not do that. Either go first or keep him in DH, but I don't know what you do with Wilmer. Maybe Wilmer plays first. Maybe those are the two options, but I think you need to, one of those two guys has to be the first baseman moving forward. And there's one last interesting personnel situation with this Giants boondoggle. I don't even know if that's the right word. How would long-term commitment to Devers impact path for a top prospect like Bryce Eldridge, who is also a first baseman who is raking AAA Sacramento, not to be confused with the Sacramento A's. They just happen to share the same minor league park. So what happens then? If Devers goes over to first, what happens? I would say DH is probably the long-term solution because Flores eventually isn't going to be there long-term. This might be his last year with them. Then now you have someone to slot in there. But in the short term, If he's not ready to come to the big leagues, then you just throw Rafi at first. That's what I would say. I would say that is probably the best way to do it. But long term, he is a DH because I think that the production this year has outweighed or has been great as a DH, which isn't something you can count on coming to spring training. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments. Rafael Devers, who's going to win this one, and is the haul that the Red Sox getting back? Jordan Hicks in the rotation, hopefully helping out, or Kyle Harrison. Will either one of those guys be able to pick up some of the slack that the pitching over in Boston is struggling? Maybe it's a stopgap situation. And what do we think about these prospects? Are they going to come up and are they going to be a big contributor to this team moving forward? Rest in peace, 2018 World Series champs, Boston Red Sox.